Okay, for this one, we're carrying on looking at different ways of generating drum patterns. And this one builds on the previous example by slicing out elements of the amen break. So what we're going to do here, instead of using choose, which is what we were doing before, we're going to start to generate random numbers. So this is the use of rand, range random. So this consists of two things. One is a sort of two numbers where you have a starting point and an ending point. So here for the start on the kick drum, we're defining a range between 0.0 and 0.7. So we're asking Sonic Pi to essentially generate a number for us. As you can see in the live loop, the first onset is always 0. So we're always guaranteed to start the live loop with a kick drum. It's always a question of what follows that downbeat, which we leave to Sonic Pi to kind of decide. So start here is a flexible thing, and finish is also flexible as well. So 0.3 and 1.0. And this might well mean, that there is the theoretical possibility of this being 0.7 and this being 0.3. So you've got a start that starts later than your finish, which is earlier. So, those sorts of things could happen. And then finally, the onset is also a random number. So here we're using a different one. We're using rand underscore I. In other words, what this is doing, the difference between rand and rand I, the I stands for integer. So it generates a whole number somewhere between this, and this is what we want, between 0 to 7. We want 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We don't want 0.5. Whereas in terms of start and finish, this accepts a number anywhere between 0.0 to 1.0. So start and finish expect kind of decimal points, floating point numbers. So that's the difference between using rand for start and finish, because we know we want to generate something that, say, on one run it's 0.1 and the next run it might be 0.12, right? So it'll be slightly different, not by much. Whereas the onsets must always be a whole number, an integer. So that's what we have there. Looking down at the code, so the snare drum remains the same. So if you've watched the previous video, you will have seen that this will be the same. For the onset here, we've got the rand I again. So somewhere between 2 and 6. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are the values we'd expect to be generated. We had a look at this one before, which is rdist. So random distribution. So between minus 0.5 and 0.5. So pan will pan somewhere along the stereo spread between left and right. And that's what's being asked to kind of create in that section there. What you'll also notice is that I've got an effects block as well. Now it's really good practice that when you're using a live loop, you can put the effects inside the live loop. But it's actually a more efficient use of resources if you have the effects loop wrapped around the live loop rather than being inside the live loop. And it's kind of the best way to kind of go through with this. We're not looking at effects at the moment, but the EQ is here. So I'll play you the hi-hat with and without EQ. And the EQ is just essentially to take a little bit of that low end out. Make it a bit more like a hi-hat. Let's listen to the whole thing and then we'll solo sections. Okay. So it's a little bit choppy in places, perhaps not as smooth as we'd like it to be. Let's listen to the kick drum part first of all. So you can hear that every time, every iteration starts with the kick drum and then it's followed by something else. We might want to, we might be able to do this to shorten the release. That might clean it up a little bit. It sort of works. There are some sort of sample points, onsets, within the loop where it's not precise, but it's clean enough, certainly clean enough for live. I mean, when we're listening to these things soloed, we hear them with lots of detail, and to be really honest, that you're probably going to miss that once you're going through a PA or you're EQing it at the other end. Let's have a listen to the hi-hat. And I'm just going to take the effects block out so I can hear what that... Actually, I should take the kick drum out as well. And now with the effect, I like that sort of sound. There we go. Let's do all three together. Okay, so there you go. So we can generate random numbers, two types, well, in fact, we've got three types of random event in this piece of code. We've got the rand, range random, and that deals with floating point or decimals, so 0.0, 0.3, and so on. And then we also have rand I, range random I. I stands for integer, so this gives us whole numbers. So some parts of Sonic Pi will need to give it sort of whole numbers, as it were. And then the third type of randomization that we've looked at is this one, the R distribution. So that's being used in there as well. And we're using the R distribution to, the range distribution, sorry. We're using that to orchestrate the panning around the stereo field. So minus 0.5 and 0.5, they give us the stereo field that we're working with. Now we've also got a little bit here with effects. So the effects are just here to clean up the hi-hat part, so we lose a little bit of any kind of low-end stuff that's in the sample when we chop it out. Okay, until next time.